Hey guys, tonight we're reading stories based on real incidents people shared publicly online. Just moments that actually happened, or at least moments people said happened to them. And honestly, those are usually the stories that stay with you longer. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Road to 2.5 million. And comment where you're watching from and what time it is there. This first story starts with something most people would ignore. A drawer. That's it. According to a public Reddit post, somebody living alone started noticing tiny things that felt slightly off, nothing dramatic. One drawer in the kitchen looked more open than usual. They closed it, forgot about it. Next day, same drawer. Again, not fully open, just enough to make them think. Did I leave it like that? They brushed it off. Because realistically, people forget stuff all the time. A few days later, they noticed something else. An object they remembered putting somewhere else. Not missing, just moved. Again, easy explanation. Tired, distracted, bad memory. So they ignored it. But then something happened that bothered them more. Food not disappearing, just ending faster than expected. One of those things where you tell yourself, I must have eaten more than I thought. Except, eventually the person realized something uncomfortable. They were starting to doubt themselves, not fear, not panic, just constantly replaying normal moments. Did I lock that? Did I leave that there? Did I move that? That feeling slowly became the scary part, not the apartment, their own memory. Eventually they tried something simple. They intentionally left small things exactly positioned. Drawer closed completely. Cup slightly turned. Chair angle, nothing extreme, just enough to notice. And according to the account, things seemed different later. Again, not enough to prove anything, just enough to stay uncomfortable. The person later said something that made the story feel real. They wrote, I wasn't scared somebody was there. I was scared I couldn't trust myself anymore. That line hit people, because everybody knows that feeling. The feeling where reality still makes sense, but less than yesterday. The story never had a huge reveal. No hidden person, no dramatic ending. Eventually they changed locks, got more careful, nothing else happened. But they ended with, I still notice tiny things now. And honestly, that might be the creepiest part. Not finding something, not seeing someone, just realizing how long you can explain things away before you finally stop and ask, wait, did that actually happen? This next story is uncomfortable because nothing obviously bad happened. That's what made people remember it. According to a public Reddit account, this happened after a completely normal evening. Nothing unusual. No party, no emergency. Just somebody trying to get home. They booked a ride, got in. The driver looked normal, car looked normal. Everything felt ordinary. The ride starts. Quiet. A few minutes pass. Then the driver starts talking. Again, nothing weird. Just normal conversation. How was your day? Where are you from? Usual things. The Reddit user answers politely. Conversation ends. Then a few minutes later, another question. This one felt slightly different. Not scary, just more personal. They answer shortly, look back at their phone. Driver keeps talking. Eventually the Reddit user notices something. Not the conversation, the route. The route looked different. Not dramatically different. Not middle of nowhere different. Just not the road they expected. They checked again. Still moving toward the destination, just differently. So they ignored it. Because GPS changes. Traffic exists. No reason to panic. A few minutes later, the driver mentioned something. Again, not threatening. But strange. They mention recognizing passengers, who travels often, who lives where, nothing illegal, nothing dramatic. But according to the post, that sentence changed the feeling of the ride. Because suddenly, the person became aware they were alone with someone they knew nothing about. The Reddit user later said, "Nothing happened. That's important. Nothing happened." But the ride suddenly stopped feeling anonymous, and that made them uncomfortable. The rest of the trip stays normal. Driver drops them, leaves, end. Except, years later, they still remembered that ride. Not because they were attacked, not because something terrible happened, because of a realization they wrote. "I realized I usually trust situations just because they look normal." That line got attention because people related, not fear, awareness. Most uncomfortable situations don't announce themselves. They don't play scary music. Nobody says creepy movie lines. Usually, you just feel slightly off, and later wonder why. The Reddit user ended with something simple. Now, when something feels uncomfortable, they pay attention. Not panic. Not assume the worst. Just notice. Because sometimes the thing that stays with you isn't what happened. It's realizing how easily you ignored your own discomfort. And honestly, that's scarier than most horror stories. This next story starts with something that sounds too small to matter. Noise. That's all. According to a public Reddit account, somebody living in an apartment started hearing sounds at night. Not loud, not dramatic. Just occasional things. A soft bump. Something shifting. Footsteps maybe. But not clear enough to say for sure. And that was the problem, because once you notice something, you start noticing everything. The Reddit user ignored it. Apartment buildings make noise. People move. Pipes exist. Old places make weird sounds. So they kept living normally. Days passed, then weeks. Every once in a while, same thing. Always late. Always easy to explain. Eventually they mentioned it to someone. The reaction was immediate. People laughed. Apartment noise. Problem solved. So they dropped it. But according to the post, what bothered them wasn't the sound anymore. It was timing. Some nights, nothing. Other nights, always around similar hours. Still, not enough to mean anything. One evening they came home and noticed something tiny. A light. One room looked slightly different. Again, easy explanation. Maybe they forgot. They even said later. I remember standing there thinking I was being ridiculous. Days later, another weird thing. One object. Not missing. Just somewhere they wouldn't leave it. That was enough. Not enough to panic. Enough to start checking. Nothing extreme. Just photos before leaving. Nothing happened. Then eventually, they talked to building management. Turns out, maintenance had entered on scheduled visits that were communicated through notices they missed. That was it. No secret person, no hidden reveal, normal explanation, end of story. Except, that wasn't why the story got attention. The Reddit user wrote, "I felt relieved and embarrassed by how fast my mind filled the blanks." People related immediately, because everybody does that. Small thing, no explanation, brain creates one, then another, then another. And suddenly something ordinary feels terrifying. But the part people remembered was this. Even after finding the explanation, the person still double-checked doors for months, because feelings don't disappear instantly just because answers arrive. And honestly, that's real fear. Not monsters, not jump scares. Just the strange moment where your brain quietly asks, what if? Then spending days trying to prove yourself wrong. The story ends simply. The Reddit user said, "Nothing dangerous happened, but now I understand why people get scared before they know the truth." And that feels more uncomfortable than most horror stories. Because everybody listening has probably had at least one moment like that. A sound, a message, a feeling, and for a few minutes, you thought something was wrong. This next story was shared publicly on Reddit, and what makes it uncomfortable isn't what happened, it's how normal it sounded at first, according to the person who posted it. They worked in a small office. Nothing unusual, same desk, same people, same routine. One afternoon they noticed something strange. Not scary, just strange. Someone had moved something on their desk. Again, easy explanation. Coworker, cleaning, no big deal. They ignored it. Next day, something else. Not missing, just slightly different. Notebook position, chair angle, tiny things. At first, they laughed about it. Started joking somebody was messing with them. But nobody reacted. Days passed, then one afternoon, they came back from lunch and noticed their monitor awake. Nothing open, nothing obvious, just awake. Again, easy explanation. Except they remembered locking it. So, they asked around. Nobody knew. Now, according to the Reddit user, this wasn't fear, it became irritation. Because they felt stupid bringing it up. Days later, they finally asked building staff. Turns out, maintenance had been entering temporarily for electrical checks. That explained most of it. Normal ending. Story finished. Except the user wrote something interesting. They said, "What scared me wasn't somebody entering. It was realizing how many unusual things I ignored before I finally asked." People agreed because most uncomfortable situations don't start dramatic. Usually, they begin as something tiny you explain away. And that's what stayed with them, not the answer, the delay. This story came from a Reddit discussion about moments people still remember years later. And this one is simple. Too simple. According to the user, they were walking home, daytime, busy area. Nothing unusual. At some point, they noticed somebody behind them. Not close, not strange. Just another person walking, so they ignored it. Minutes later, still there, different street. Still behind. Again, that means nothing. People walk the same direction. The user later said, "I didn't think I was being followed. I just noticed." So they turned into a random shop, walked around, waited, left. The person was gone. Immediately, they felt embarrassed. See? Nothing. But while walking again, they noticed something weird. Same person, across the street now, still walking. Again, not impossible. Could mean absolutely nothing. And according to the Reddit user, that's exactly why they still think about it. Because they never found out. They changed route, went somewhere busy, went home. Nothing happened, no confrontation, no reveal. Years later, they still remember it. Not because danger was confirmed, because uncertainty stayed. The post ended with, "I don't know if anything was wrong. I just remember being happy I listened to myself." People like that answer because not every story ends with proof. Sometimes, all you keep is a feeling. And honestly, those stories stay longer. This last story feels different. Not because it's bigger, actually, because almost nothing happens. According to a public Reddit account, this happened during a completely normal afternoon. The person had errands. Nothing exciting. They parked, walked, finished what they needed. And while heading back, they noticed somebody. Again, nothing unusual. Just another person nearby. They didn't think about it. Walked normally. A minute later, they noticed them again. Not close. Just around. Different direction. Same area, still not strange. Public places work like that. So, they ignored it. Walked into another store, came out. And there they were again. Still, not enough. The Reddit user even says later, "If somebody else told me this story, I'd probably say coincidence." And honestly, fair. But they kept noticing little things. Changing pace, same, Stopping, same, different route. Still around, no staring, no movie villain energy, nothing obvious. Which somehow made it worse. Because now the person had no reason to react. They didn't want to assume, didn't want to panic, didn't want to become one of those stories where somebody misreads a normal situation. So they kept walking. Then they did something simple. They entered a random place and stayed there, longer than necessary, not hiding, just waiting. When they left, the person was gone. Immediately, relief. And honestly, that should have been the end. Except, according to the Post, they sat in their car and didn't leave immediately. Just checking messages, and then they saw that same person walk past the parking area. Not looking at them, not approaching, just walking. And suddenly, they got that strange feeling. Not fear, not certainty. Just, I want to go home. So they left. Nothing happened, no confrontation, no reveal, no explanation. And that was the whole story. People in the comments kept asking, do you think they were following you? The Reddit user answered, I honestly don't know. And weirdly, that made people trust the story more. Because real uncomfortable moments usually don't end with certainty. Sometimes you never find out. The person ended with something people remembered. I don't think anything bad would have happened, but I'm still glad I listened to myself. That sentence changed the comments. Because suddenly people weren't discussing danger anymore. They were talking about something else. Permission to leave, permission to feel uncomfortable, permission to not stay in situations just because you can't prove something is wrong. The Reddit user never saw that person again. Nothing dramatic happened. Life continued. But years later, they still remembered that afternoon. Not because of what happened, because of what didn't. Because sometimes the weirdest stories aren't. I survived something terrible. Sometimes nothing happened. And I still think about it. Thanks for listening. Sleep well. Sweet dreams.